start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will read the call.
Get all my other stuff. Yeah, this, 1 second. Here we go. Dear Supervisor, please be advised that the Trumpealeau County Board of Supervisors will meet at 10 a.m. on November 12th, 2024 in the County Board Room. All County Board members' claims are due in the County Clerk's office by noon on November 5th, 2024, so they can be prepared for Audit Committee approval. Sincerely, Paul Severson, County Clerk.
Roll call.
Bridget Turner.
Here.
Stacy Klein.
Here.
Richard Seisha is in the hospital. Lori Severson.
Let's see her on.
I don't, see-
To attend virtually.
she's not on there either.
Not yet. But
Okay, Andy Todd.
He's having issues at the store.
Okay. Richard Anderson.
Here.
Kevin Adams.
Here.
Dick Miller.
Here.
Kevin Whalen.
Here.
John Austin.
Here.
Don Waldera.
Here.
Robert Becker.
Here.
Renee Lyon.
Here.
Kellen Nelson.
Here.
David Larson.
Here.
Jeannie Nutter.
Here.
Ron Johnson.
Here.
14.
14-3. Okay, certify the open meeting law requirements have been met with proper posting and notification. We have an 11-item agenda. Looking for a motion to,
Second.
motion by Supervisor Turner, second by Supervisor Anderson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's carried. Appearances. I don't see John Stisha.
I don't see him either.
Not here, so we'll go to Sheriff Brett.
Good morning.
Morning.
So this is, I'm appearing for my quarterly report. This will be for the months of August through October. I'll just go through some of the boring numbers and maybe hit some highlights at the end and answer any questions that you might have. So to start out with, the Sheriff's Office responded to 2,907 calls for service in August through October. That is down from 3,178. But some of the rest of the numbers will tell a different tale, that we've been busier with some of the more time-consuming calls. So start out with death investigations. We did respond to 10 deaths. There were 44 total called into the county in that time period. Most of them are hospice or expected deaths. 10 of them did require a deputy to be present. 2 of them, unfortunately, were suicides. So that brings to 3 for the year. According to my data, the number of suicides. The number of death investigations in the previous quarter was 9, so we're right about average for as far as that goes for death investigations themselves. Drug abuse violations were down from 16 to 12 for that period. Again, as I reported last month, we are without a drug investigator. This week, we will fill that position. It came open now finally, and we will be filling that position this week, so we'll start to see some more activity in that field, I suspect. Disorderly conduct, simple assault type of things. We had 22 called into us versus 6, so we're a little bit busier. Simple assault can be something as little as kids yelling at each other on a school bus that would get called to, or perhaps a fight where nobody is seriously injured. So there's quite a range there of what could potentially be a simple assault. 3 burglaries this period versus 4 the period before. Pretty steady. Thefts are up from 4 to 11, so we've got stickier fingers this quarter. And we did have 1 motor vehicle stolen within Trempealeau County. Some of the traffic data, we did respond to 211 crashes. When I say respond, that means that dispatch had to take out a case number or a call number for 211. 127 of those were deer accidents. We don't necessarily respond to deer accidents, but dispatch has to do something with those, so we count them. I would say probably 60% of them don't require a deputy to go to the scene. We only send a deputy if there's an injury or road blockage or the motorist needs assistance to get their vehicle or themselves out of the scene. Generally, we just direct people to a website to fill out the crash reports themselves for car deer crashes. We had 62 property damage crashes, pretty similar to the previous quarter. Injury crashes were up 5. We did respond to 22 injury crashes, and we did have one more fatal in September, a motorcycle crash down by Galesville, so that brings to 6 the total number of fatal crashes this year, each one resulting in the death of one person. Some enforcement activity, we issued 203 traffic citations versus 177. We did issue 30 non-traffic citations, and those are typically county ordinance violations or alcohol violations versus 11, and 294 warnings versus 241. I will say that we are operating under a grant this year, and there could have been a grant period within that or two that would cause some of the higher numbers as opposed to the previous quarter. 15, Chapter 51, or mental health incidents were responded to versus 11, or versus 7 in the quarter prior. They are not all emergency detentions, but they're all incidents that required an evaluation for potential emergency detention. In the jail today, we have 47 inmates. That's down from 49 in the quarter before. We do have 11 from another county in our jail currently. That is obviously, I've been talking, that's a revenue item for us now. And that has been pretty average. 11 has been about 11, 12, 10 for the last month and a half or so. And we do have one out on electronic monitoring at this time. Some of the employee positions up there are the employment positions. We have 5 vacancies in our jail right now. Out of 19, we have 5 open. We do have 3 that are either in background investigation or drug and physical stage of the employment. We will be hiring 2 more now in coming days. We have 1 opening in dispatch with a candidate starting field training very soon. We will have another one in dispatch in about a month. We are expecting a retirement there. So, and in patrol, we have 1 position open, and that would be to fill that drug position, basically, is what that will amount to. So, a couple of highlights, if you want to call it that, I guess. The sheriff's office did locate a juvenile in September. There was a report from Brown County Sheriff's Office. They had called over and asked us to check on a juvenile, a location where a juvenile may be that had run away from their county, had been missing since July. I had about 2 or maybe 3 investigators on that, and it took them less than 24 hours to figure out that this kid was living perhaps in the woods in Jackson County with an adult male, and with the cooperation of us and Jackson, they were able to locate that kid within 24 hours of Brown County requesting that from us. So kudos to my staff for the hard work they put on that. We got the child back home again, and a adult male was taken into custody over in Jackson County as a result. August 30th, we responded to a plane crash. We don't do many of those, so I thought that would be a highlight for tonight or today. It was a serious injury. However, I think the person has recovered or is recovering from that, and that was at the Strum Airport. A couple things coming up here. On November 26th of this month, Ross and Erica will be doing a badges presentation in Arcadia. And that's the one I've talked about where they're giving this presentation to adult caregivers and parents in the community. Kind of a no kids allowed type of thing where they're really laying it on the line to these parents of what the kids have available to them. They did one in Trempealeau last month, and it went over very well. They're doing this one in Arcadia. And then I've been kind of planting the seed here that if it works out, we're going to also do that presentation on Martin Luther King Day, the Employee Engagement Day, or Employee Training Day in January. I believe that everybody who is in these audiences will definitely have their eyes open and will get something out of this. And again, this is you know, the things that are available to kids through apps on phones. It talks about the vaping and the other things that kids are getting into now, and also discusses the threat of human trafficking, what to watch for type of thing. So it's an all-encompassing program that I think everybody will get something out of. So, and finally, I just want to mention that we are in the middle of our Christmases for Kids program this year, and where the tags are on the Christmas tree in the sheriff's office lobby. If you want one, you can stop by, or if you can't make it, you can give us a call. We'll get you set up if you want to help out with that program. So the giveaway will be a party type of atmosphere at the Whitehall High School again in December. This will be the third year we've done it this way, and the referrals come to us from the school districts in the county, and it's been working out really good since we started that model. So that's kind of the highlights.
Good.
Yeah,
What is the date in December, do you know? For the,
December 11th.
the 11th?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't remember, had the new dispatch center moved over yet?
No, thank you for bringing that up. We have, the radio equipment is being staged at Motorola in La Crosse right now, and they are, let me tell you, chomping at the bit to get this installed. They want to install it in the current dispatch center. AT&T is not ready yet for us to move the 911 system over with the new equipment, and I would like to have it all set up in the new dispatch center before we move dispatch over. The push for Motorola could end up with another $50,000 charge for us. They're really pushing to do this. I don't know why. We've paid for the equipment, but I'm kind of holding my ground and waiting to hear from AT&T when we can get the 911 system set up over there. At the same time, I want the radio system set up over there so that we don't have to go through the process of moving everything, new stuff in the old building, when we can wait until it's all set up over here. So January 1st is the target date for that right now. We have not been assigned a project manager from AT&T yet, so it's still up in the air. We got that word through the radio supplier that January 1st is what AT&T is saying, but we have not heard from them. So thanks for asking. That's one thing I forgot to mention.
Thank you, Sheriff.
May I have a question? On November 26th, the badges presentation in Whitehall, is that the school?
That'll be in Arcadia. on
Or,
the
excuse me, in
26th.
Arcadia?
Yep.
And is that
That is at the
school?
library, I believe. Yep, the
Okay,
Arcadia
thank
Public
you.
Library. Yep. As we get closer, I'll probably put out an email to, especially all county board, but all staff. It's open to the public, so anyone wants to go, you just have to be 18 years old or older, because there is some graphic content presented in the terms of words and stuff. Not pictures, of course, but it gets to be some pretty graphic language discussed at those things. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I see I missed item 4, approval of the minutes. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? Motion by Supervisor Johnson and second by Supervisor Nutter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's carried. Now we're back to where we're supposed to be, administrative report.
Oh, very good. Good morning to everybody on Budget Day. We're going to talk a little bit about our debt piece again. The Exec Finance Committee had recently heard a discussion again after coming out of our last meeting. There were some questions about, well, what would it look like if we could take debt on for shorter periods of time? And so we took that, we, meaning Brian Ellers and myself, then took that discussion to the Exec Finance Committee. So we want to bring that discussion here to you today, and then we want to take that into a discussionary point that came out of that, and we'll kind of follow up with that before we get into the budget. So this is not something you make a decision on today. This is just, again, for information and taking this in so that we can bring it to you in December to hopefully have a decision on it then. So if I could get help here, I'm going to I've got a lot of paper to help you with. We'll bring it up on screen, but I think some of this, when you're looking at charts, is hard to see maybe. And this you can take with you, and then you can look at it later and ask questions and, bring that up again. So let me go into sharing that. Did I close it? Maybe I did. No. Oh, here. Hi, Brian. Welcome.
Morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to just talk a little bit first about debt as a broad vision again. And you've had a lot of discussions about debt before I've been here because you took on a generational project right next door, which was a huge investment. And so during that time before me, there were a lot of discussions about how that would impact you moving forward. Because when you take on that type of project, it's going to impact what you can do for the future and how you do it in the future. You still have needs, you still have roads that need to be repaired, you still have things that need to be taken care of, but now you got to look at it in a different way because you've taken on a project that, again, I think as far as visionary, that was a really wise thing to do when looking at how you, again, attract individuals to the area to work and stay and to make this a viable community. It's a good project, right? But now we just have to think about how we continue to do good things for the county and taking care of things here. So doing CIP planning and long-term gives us the opportunity to be fiscally responsible and gives us options for the future and how we handle a lot of the issues that are coming up. We're going to focus on year one as we move forward in December in talking about, what does year one in 2025 look like? But we also want that vision out there and knowing that there are continual needs. And as leaders, you have to think about how you're taking care of that. Are you taking care of that immediate, prolonging, prioritizing? But we do need to look out and on the horizon. You can't focus on your reserves anymore. You can't whittle those down because you need them there for safeguards, and so you don't have that ability. And again, you've taken on a project that you have to be cognizant of in planning on debt in totality. And without a plan, we end up with the same discussion every year. You've been having this discussion a while because of that big project, but if we don't think and talk this through thoroughly and think about how can we handle this long-term, we end up here every year and rehashing the same conversation. So long-term planning it's a real definite positive. It's looked at positively from the economic world, on the ratings world, and how people are rating this county. So it's a very good thing to have long-term planning in place. Some things to think about. We're planning for today and for 2026, but we need to think about the leaders who come beyond us, right? And making sure that we're not boxing them in and not being able to address the issues. And I think that's part of this conversation, which really good questions the last time, and it brings the ability for Brian to come to us and talk about what does that mean if we take on short-term borrowing and it actually can hamper us in the future. So I think that these are really good things for us to ask questions about and research and find out why we want to do things and why we don't want to do things, and so that we make good decisions. This, again, I'm going to recommend the 20-year plan, but I'll let Brian kind of go into some of the background and that kind of the story that you shared with us at the Exec Finance Committee meeting.
Sure thing. Thank you. A few of these slides we've looked at already. I would say you can Actually, Becky, I think you have the older deck here without the 6 to 6.5 million through 7.
Well, let's
There you go.
let's talk
You wanna
about
start
the
here?
3, 5, 10, and 20-year
Okay.
look first.
Very good.
Yep.
Sure thing. You can go on to the next slide, and just so everybody's aware, we did, as far as that bottom box goes, introduce a few different amortization structures that were, I would say, far more aggressive than 20 years, and looked at some shorter terms and what those impacts might look like. We've all seen this slide. Again, this is just a reminder as to what you presently look like from a debt service perspective and what you levy for debt service. And again, the bars, the columns are dollar amounts. And so you're right around 4.6 million, 25 through 2028. The kick up year over year from 23 to 24 was related to a 2023 debt issue that was 5 years in term, and then had level payments and fully retired in 2020. For taxes payable in 25, again, the dollar amount is roughly the same as 24, but the value of the county has gone up that you tax against. And so therefore, the math works out that the tax rate goes down year over year. And in this case, that is about 11 cents per thousand of value on an equalized basis, not assessed, which again is going to be kind of uneven from community to community, depending upon where they are at as well. So when you use kind of static numbers that are more apples to apples, that's the tax rate that you arrive at. All right, and so you're going to see some similar themes here, especially with the 3 and the 5 year structures, kind of this pyramid shape, which should be inferred given that the way we're looking at this would be over the course of a 5 year period, 2025 through 29, again, $7 million each year respectively over that window of time. And then for each issue as it occurs over that time. And so with the 3 year issue, obviously it's far more pronounced, but it does come down a little bit after the 3rd year because you will have fully repaid the first issue at that point in time. So in the 4th year, there is a bit of a decline, and then it kind of plateaus and then again continues to decline for the same reason. The 3 year structures result in very rapid amortizations, and some of them are paid off over that 5 year window. However, the impacts are far more pronounced. In this case, the peak for the 3 year would be somewhere like 12.75 million. On the 5 year structure here, again, it's a little more staggered over time with the better pyramid structure, because with the 5 year payments, not everything is retired within that 5 year window. So from a tax impact perspective, again, far more pronounced for 3 years at a little under 12.5 million, peak in 2028. And then tax rate wise, going from that $1.37 per thousand to $3.63 per thousand at that peak level. We can look at the 5 year debt on the next page. And again, similar story, less pronounced, about 11.75 million. The peak is kicked out a few years. Instead of 28, it's 2030. Again, with the 5 year level payments, the payments are a little smaller to get to that full amortization, and a corresponding slightly smaller impact on a tax rate basis to $3.45 per thousand versus the $3.63 per thousand. I think the biggest takeaway here on both of these is just the absolute dollar amount of the levy required to service debt in this fashion. And so in the case of the 3 year, you're talking an almost 3-fold increase in the levy, the dollar amount of the levy for debt service. And on the 5 year, it's about 250%. So at that level of taxation, this would become a very, very large component of your overall budget, certainly the levy in total, and could certainly put some pressure on the rating. And there's also a very pronounced tax impact. We can then look at the 10 year structure, I think comes next. And again, it's just, smoothed out a little further. You have more of a plateau versus a heavy peak. You increase to a peak amount of 8.2 million in 2030. Again, if we recall what you have been at and would otherwise be at about 4.6 million. That's not quite a doubling of the levy for debt service. Tax rate wise is about $2.40 per thousand. Again, from the trough of about $1.37 per thousand, which is going to be payable in 25. And then you kind of hang out there for a few more years. And then again, you take a few steps down as the various issues are retired over time. And this one is really revisiting one that we've already looked at, 20-year debt with a level payment structure. In this case, we're able to better take advantage of some of the natural step downs in debt service that already exist with the levy going from 29 to 30. And as you go out in time again, 32 to 33, where you get to a stabilized levy that is entirely comprised of the debt service associated with the Justice Center project. And so this does flatten out a bit. In this case, peak debt service is just under 6.5 million in 2030. And you go from the $1.37 to $1.90 in tax rate over this forecast period. So on a summary basis, there was some interest in just kind of seeing economically, looking specifically at those debt issues. How do we compare and contrast? One way to do that is to look at the total amount of debt service. Clearly, when you pay debt off more rapidly, you're going to incur less interest. And so that is a consideration, and it is valuable to try to forego the interest, but that has to be measured against your desire from a tax impact perspective. Obviously, the longer amortization results in higher total debt service, inclusive of both principal and interest, but it also mitigates the impact to taxpayers. And so this table is really meant to be a summation largely of the charts we just reviewed. So you get the visual image from the charts, and then you can kind of compare and contrast here with what are the impacts as a result of these, and what is the cost of tax mitigation efforts as well. You should have full set of information when making decisions. And so I think to Rebecca's point, looking at this, the notion was that perhaps we should transition to a longer term structure, understanding that it does come with some additional interest expense over the forecast period, but also a corresponding lighter impact to the taxpayer. It is also important, again, to recognize that the larger debt services as a component of your overall budget, the more negative implications there are to your rating. I think I'm on record as stating previously that you shouldn't necessarily manage all of your financial house to rating considerations, but this one would be clear in that if the debt service looked like it did for the 3, 5, and maybe even 10-year examples, that there would be negative implications because it would probably exceed 25% of your total general fund budget. And we don't really have a story to tell beyond that would say, that's going to go away very quickly. So it's going to be looked at unfavorably in that context and could lead to degradation in the rating, which does determine your cost of capital.
Good. Thank you, Brian. So some of the things that we had talked about previously as well is talking about that is especially with roads, and that's the majority of what we're talking about here, or a building project even. That's something that's going to benefit people 20, 30 years from now. And so the conversation is why should people now be paying for that to benefit everybody 20 years from now, or 10, 15, 20 years from now into the future, right? If we spread it out, then those individuals are paying for that asset as well. And so it's just thought of as being more fair in how we're spreading that out. By keeping things shorter, like Brian was talking about, it can actually be short-sighted and, again, for future leaders, move them into a box so that they're not able to address issues because of the issue with pushing up against that 25% piece that we've talked about. And I just want to remind you that a lot of counties use long-term debt financing to manage this, and more and more counties and cities, villages, townships, that's what they've got to move into because of the strict levy limits that we have. And it's just a problem with a broken system, but it's what we're kind of forced into. Having said that, we get money at a very good rate. It's low interest rates that, we receive on that. We actually make back more on our interest coming in. And so, I mean, that's a positive, and it's always a positive to remember that this is not like the national debt. We pay it off. Every year, we're paying down debt, and we're taking on this new, but we're paying down. It's not building for not being paid back. So I think that's always something that I want to keep in mind when I'm looking at debt. And so looking at the 20-year piece, we're going to move into that whole wraparound piece again that we talked about and how that provides more flexibility to the county. It's least tax impact on the people that are here. We don't want to drive people out that are here. We want to make sure that they can stay and live here and still have quality service and quality assets that we're taking care of. We want to be competitive for business, so we don't want to tax out business as well. So we want to make sure that we're keeping our rates lower, so that we're appealing to a wide variety of people, families and businesses and older people that are going to retire here. So let's go into the next discussion then. I'm talking about, out of that discussion that we had at Exec Finance, it was like saying, yeah, the 20-year probably makes a lot of sense because of what we don't want to overtax, and we don't want to paint ourselves into this box. And so then the question was, well, should we really be borrowing $7 million? And would we save? And of course we would save, but what would be the impact if we went to 6 million, 6.5, or 7 million, so that we can take a look at, is it appropriate that we're doing 7 million? And then I'm going to tell you why I think it's really important that we're striving for 7. That's my recommendation for you. You don't have to go with that, but I do think as a rural county, I want you to be competitive. And so that's where I step in and say, this is where I think the vision needs to be. But again, it is up to you and what you feel comfortable with. But when I look at Brian's presentation that he's going to share next, I would feel comfortable with this as a leader. So go ahead, Brian. You're going to step into this one now.
Yeah, I'll give you some difference on this one, Rebecca. As you walk through this, again, we've kind of presented 3 scenarios in this one, understanding that we wanted to look at longer term amortizations. And then when we originally looked at this, it was really, I guess, 2 fundamental options would be level payments over the 20-year period, or to structure the debt in a way that takes into consideration the current levy for debt service and then the future issues that come over time, and building the payment solutions to mitigate the tax impact so that they're fundamentally not level payments, and we purposefully built them to accommodate your specific situation. This will change over time, but we have to start somewhere. And so I'll just set the backdrop again, stating we have assumed your tax base does not change over this 5-year window, and really over this 20-year+ window. As you look at this, it almost becomes a 25-year window, the way we're looking at it. And so it will not look exactly like this, but we have to start somewhere. And so if we go through the charts, I can guarantee you they're going to look very much the same. And some of the detail will get lost. And so we can go through those if you'd like. To me, the summary and the comparison at the end really tells the whole story here. So we've left in some detail to give you a sense as to what the changes year over year are, say, in the first couple periods. But really it boils down to this. And so you can look from $6 to $7 million I'm not dismissing the fact that there's a difference of, $220,000 a year peak from 6 million to 7 million, but you really have to look at it on a tax rate basis, and that the difference is about 6 cents per thousand. Once you get to the peak number, which would be essentially in 2026, right around there. So once you get to 2026, as we look before, when you build these wrap solutions, you end up being very flat for a long period of time. Because we've been conservative, that also results in a kind of a flat tax rate over time as well. The hope would be in reality that with some nominal increases in your tax base, even at the same dollar amount, the tax rate would go down nominally specific to debt service. That doesn't mean it's not going to maybe ebb and flow up and down over time, just depending on how things shake out. So just looking at this one specifically, there's not a huge gradation between the $6 million or $7 million scenarios. And so I think from all of your perspectives, you need to arrive at what is a comfortable level of tax impact associated with new debt, and what are our investments really what do they really need to be from a dollar perspective? Obviously, over the 5-year window, there's a difference of $5 million in total investment from a capital projects perspective between the $6 and $7 million scenarios. So maybe I'll just pause there. The rest of it looks very much the same.
Okay.
And so I think that's the key takeaway. It's just trying to, at a summary level, the juxtaposition between both ends of that spectrum at 6 and 7 million.
Right, and so when I look at this as leader and trying to analyze what is it that we're trying to do? And I think one of the main things that we're trying to do is trying to make sure that we are competitive, right? And that families want to stay here and young families want to move here. We want to keep everybody, but we certainly need to think about how we're attracting individuals. And we've talked a lot about that and the issues of population loss and what that looks like, and that we're kind of stagnant right now, but that we have opportunity here. We have a lot of opportunity here. And so in order to make the opportunity happen, it is my belief anyway, sometimes that takes investment. So I'm going to share the next piece with you, and then we're going to talk about why I put the 7 million mark on here. So as you look at the first page, this is a breakdown of the CIP, only the CIP that's included in the long-term borrowing. And so as you see these projects, the top 3/4 of it is focused on our departments and, things that we need in order to keep business going, right? Now, we've talked about highway and that, highway is a high price tag. It's the majority of what you're looking at. There's an importance here in highway, of course, but then it is a matter of, highway, what level do you want to take it at, right? And we shared at the last meeting how Neil has done a really good job with his team and looking at how long a road lasts. We know we can pretty much figure that out. And so then we put it on a schedule and say, this is when these roads need to be done and taken care of. Hey, Amy, are there extras? I wondered if people in the audience might want a copy, and I apologize, I didn't scan those in, so I can't share them online. Anyway, so we're looking at these items, and when you're coming down to, well, I guess I could have put the last 3 in here, right? I believe a tourism website is important for the county, is I've tried to kind of walk you through and talking about sales tax and how we need to increase that, and we've got the GEM grant now, so we're looking at how we bring in additional revenue as well. And so that's the thought behind that. And then we move into building renovations and this Park Economic Development Fund. And so, and I've built that in every year. And what that looks like in year 2, 3, 4, and 5, I have like thoughts on where that would go, but it would depend next year where we're at and things. But I want to walk you through what I see for the vision of 2025 and how this would help your county. So if you turn to the next page, I want to just talk about why do we want development? And economic development in rural areas is about creating opportunities that sustain families, build resilient communities, and enhance the quality of life for everyone. By investing, we empower these regions to thrive independently and preserve the unique character that makes rural communities invaluable. And nobody wants to lose that. I mean, I think I get that message a lot, and I think that's really important. But in the bottom corner, you remember, my goal is always, how are we attracting young families to come here and fill our homes when we're ready to sell, when we and keep our schools vibrant. If you think about population loss in our schools and how that can impact a community and all of the ways that a school impacts a community, sports and activities and school pride and community pride and things like that, it's very important. So moving on to childcare and crisis, I've shared this data with you before. There just are not enough childcare slots in the county. This is not unusual for the county. It's a problem across the nation. Turning on to the next page, the long-term impacts for businesses and Wisconsin communities with childcare and crisis. Parents are forced out of the workforce due to unaffordability, absence of childcare options, the negative economic impact on businesses where they're unable to hire, and then there's just the loss of revenue from people staying out of the workforce and how that impacts our Wisconsin, state of Wisconsin. So what we focused on, I've talked to you a lot about this partnership with Gunderson Hospital as well as the school district here in Whitehall. So I'm just going to focus on that right now. We've decided to do a survey across the whole county and ask people to fill out a survey about childcare. So there's a group of individuals that focuses on that, and they helped us put the survey together. And we had not only Gunderson Hospital and Whitehall School District, but all of the school districts within the county, as well as businesses. So Ashley Furniture was a main participator in this and getting this survey out to their employees. So we had 358 responses, very positive in a short window of time. And so I was really happy to see that we had that. And then 77% of the respondents were working residents that care for children under the age of 12. So if you turn to the next page, this is the survey. So you have all of that data and you can take a look at, and where 62% of your residents that are taking care of children in this county said, yeah, they've thought about just staying home and getting out of the workforce. That's a concern. That's a concern for your county. The cost, again, is something that is affecting a lot of people. So I'll let you continue to look through that survey on your own, but if you flip to the back page, this is where I wanted to break down the 7 million piece and why we're at 7 million, because I could absolutely take off, like I talked to you about, the 1 million for the building project, the 250,000 for economic development, and if you even wanted to do the tourism website. So you're talking about 1.3 million about. But let's just talk about our government center rehab project. The building renovation estimate from Samuels is 3.9 million. We need an additional about 300,000 in contingency. And then furniture, Jeremy went and priced out to see what it would cost to go with a lower level than what we've done over here in the Justice Center, but still do a nice level of commercial grade furniture. And so we're looking at 375,000. So the total needed is 4.575 million. We have a resolution that you've already designated funds set aside at 3.488998, so that is set aside, but we have this funding gap of a little over $1 million. So this is where I had said, let's set aside $1 million out of this 7 million to make sure we get the project done. As long as you're gonna commit to it, let's get it done and get it done right and do it. I mean, you can argue some different things when we flip the page, but from right here, this is what I'm sharing with you right now. So if you flip the page, this is the Parks Economic Development $250,000 fund I've set aside. It's community space, childcare center opportunity, and I do think it's a real opportunity. So you have the 250,000 there. We have a state verbal commitment from WEDC to match that at 250,000. I've got verbal, again, these are verbal, but I'm talking with the foundation, at the hospital foundation, and I'm not sure on that number. So I don't want any of these numbers hardline, but I'm putting in a hope to. And businesses, I will just say, Rich Anderson and myself, we met with one of your premier businesses just recently, and a leader in this area, and his comments were reflective of mine. And so it is not to say that businesses understand these needs. And so I just want you to know the importance of that, but I do think it should be a partnership. And that's why I put in a number here and just saying, hey, if we went to businesses and said, we want you to be a partner in this, knowing that you bring employees from across the county and you would invest here, would you be interested? And that's one thing I would look for. Then Osseo School District, I've talked with the superintendent there. They have interest as well. I think in a rural area, you've done a fantastic job with Arcadia and Blair. They're great examples of positive childcare that's happening in a very rural area. And to see Arcadia need to expand is really telling. And so, but what are we doing across the county? And how powerful would that be for a small rural area to have childcare covered across the whole county? I think that would be a very strong message that you're sending to your businesses that are already here, but to future businesses that may want to come here, or someone that may want to bring housing in here. So, so then we talk about our 2024 interest income. We're exceeding where we thought our interest would be by about $400,000. We should be on mark for $400,000 by the end of the year. I've talked to Lori and clarified that. And then we just received the county mutual check on work comp savings for $172,000 plus. So I added all up, and I've got a little over 1.5 million. And thinking about, you have to have fire suppression, you have to have additional bathrooms and water stations and things, and in a community center area, you'd want to think about some of those things as well. And then we'd have to have 2 separate entrances, so you can see where prices add up. So certainly I could make the argument that it would be easy to plug the 400,000 and the 172,000 and put it into the building renovation. And so I mean, that's pretty obvious to me. And that again is a choice that you could make. I believe strongly in the childcare piece and the economic development piece, and so I bring this to you, but those are decisions that you could focus on and you could think about. Questions?
Anybody got questions?
Any questions for Brian?
I have a question.
There you go.
So back on the second summary with the 6.5, and 7 million, are there totals for the total interest over time, what we'd be paying on those?
Sorry, let me see here.
In the last part of the discussion,
Yep,
This part?
yeah. So similar to how we had that on the other
Sure.
one.
Yep, I can tell you in a moment.
So are you talking about over a 5-year or a
Yeah.
longer period?
So like the previous one had the total debt service, the grand total. I'm just wondering if, yeah, he has those handy for the second one.
For the scenario where we have 6 million, total interest cost is 12,964,000. Sorry, I'm gonna revisit that in a moment here.
Yeah. 6 minutes.
Actually, 17,964,000.
We could maybe follow up with that at our December meeting?
Yeah, if it's
Would that
gonna
be all
take
right?
too long.
I can do
Yeah.
that. I have it all.
Okay,
That's a fair comment.
if that's okay. Or even in between there, I could email it out. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
I have a question,
Yeah.
Rebecca. On that last page where you have the 1.5 million, is that all for one facility, or would we be looking at setting up maybe a north, south, and central area? That's for one facility.
Yeah, that's including the community space and here in this location. Yep. And so in thinking about this as well, this is not, you could say, we want you to go ahead and see what kind of support you get, right? We don't know if the foundation actually comes through. We don't know if businesses actually come through. And we could see what that looks like. And so I think that this is, we could change course. It doesn't have to be, but it could be something that we're aspiring to in 2025 but as I've shared with exec finance, a lot of times what happens is the 250 that I'm asking to stay in here, when I go to WEDC, they're saying, how much are you committing? And so it's kind of the chicken and the egg. Who puts it up first? Does WEDC or do we? And a lot of times they want the commitment from the county first. But this is, again, because we could work with WEDC and they're excited about the project, because we'd work with them, does that mean in the end, we'd have to take the money? No, you don't have to. So if all of that fell apart and we couldn't make it work, the school district said, no, we decided we don't want to run childcare. Well, we don't want to run childcare. I'll say that much right now. So then I would just say, well, then we'll have to shift. We'll have to rethink things. So does that help a little?
Thank you.
So when you and Supervisor Anderson talked to this business owner, is this business owner a potentially large benefactor? I think that's important to think about. And is this someone who has been a large benefactor historically?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have another question. So say if we went ahead with this, has there been discussion or planning yet on staffing and what that would look like?
My discussions have only been with the school district, kind of higher level yet. Superintendent Bigley has also spoken with his board about this prospect. The thought is to partner probably with another provider and expansion and such, but that the school district would be responsible for staffing and running it. So I think that they would really look to Arcadia and Blair for examples and guidance on how to do that.
There's no doubt, the state of Wisconsin, there's issue with childcare throughout. And that's been on TV and in the news and everything. And with that, I went out and I talked to a lot of different individuals throughout the county to see what their thoughts were on it. And everybody says that it's a huge issue. It's very expensive. It's expensive to set up home care for children. And, mom and pop both have to go out and work today to survive. It seems like it's changed since 30 years ago. And that's the world we live in. But I give great gratitude to our administrator because she does have a vision. And when we talked to this other person that's well-established throughout the county, they said to you have to definitely have a vision. And those two had spoke for probably about 15 minutes about the vision, and they were spot on. And the person we talked to is, they've developed quite a business throughout the county and very respected individuals, and something might be opening up here again in Whitehall. So I think that this is a great start to look at. I talked to a friend of mine who, they have two children, and they had daycare in the village of Strum, and that place has recently closed up, so they had one heck of a time trying to find daycare for the two individuals. They did, but there's a lot of other people that are suffering up there that can't find daycare, so there is a huge need for it. Anybody that says there isn't, that I would counter that, I guess. But so anyway, I think, I believe that she's on the right track. I think it's something we definitely need to put money aside for. I think there's a lot of logistics left to figure out, but it's a start, and I would say kudos to our administrator for bringing this forward.
Anyway, it's 11 o'clock now, so I'm gonna have
Save
to
my
delay
question
this
for
Chippewa health thing for probably half an hour. Is that okay? Well,
We have to start the budget.
we have to start the budget reading now because it's in it.
Our apologies, Carl is not able to be here today, something came up,
Okay.
so we are not needing to do that anyway, so I just wanted to say.
Oh,
You can skip it altogether.
Oh, perfect.
He's not able to do
oh, okay.
that. You can move it to the December meeting.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much. That helps.
No
Thank you.
problem. Thank you.
It's not a bad thing.
Okay, we'll go to the budget reading.
I'm going to be reading the last three columns of the summary budget. Ready?
Yes, go ahead.
County Board, budget $109,501.19, revenue zero, levy $109,501.19. 800 number, budget $60,000, zero revenues, levy $60. Circuit Court, budget $1,198,290.10, revenues $473,710, levy $724,580.10. Law Library, budget $12,390.10, revenues $7,993.44, levy $4,396.66. Coroner, budget $112,544.24, revenues $17,000, levy $95,544.24. District Attorney, budget $408,526.09. Revenues $62,400.20. Levy $346,125.89. TAD grant diversions, budget $60,000, revenues $60,000, levy $0. Corporation Council, budget $253,856.10, revenues $17,750, levy $236,106.10. Special accounting, budget $100,000, revenues $0, levy $100,000. Indirect cost study, budget $4,800, revenues $0, levy $4,800. County clerk, $399,315.27, revenues $3,950, levy $395,365.27. Administration, budget $751,049.41, revenues $44,546, levy $706,503.41. EAP program, budget $9,500, zero levies, zero revenues, levy $9,500. Elections, $93,358.55, revenues $0, levy $93,358.55. Information Systems Department, budget $1,009,347.60, revenues $33,504, levy $975,343.60. Treasurer, budget $228,040.27, revenue $6,000, levy $222,040.27. Courthouse, budget $985,968.49, revenue $0, levy is the same amount. Projected property project initiations are 000. Jail repairs are 000. Security screening, budget $233,481.06, revenues $0, levy $233,481.06. The risograph is 000. Property liability insurance, budget $489,137, revenues $287,250, levy $201,887. Workman's comp, budget $425,520, revenues $319,140, levy $106,380. Accrued liability for work comp is 000. Unemployment compensation, budget $53,258.97, revenues in the same amount, levy $0. Health insurance deductible, budget $128,500, revenues $0, levy $128,500. Registered deeds, budget $304,127.44, revenues $213,000, levy $91,127.44. Land Records Administration, budget $361,072.04, revenues $21,300, levy $339,772.04. Land Records Public Access, budget $132,568.71, revenues the same amount, levy is $0. Land Records Retained Fees, budget $173,499.86, revenues in the same amount, levy is $0. Land Records WLIP Grant, budget $365,749.63, revenues in the same amount, levy is $0. Tax deeds, budget $6,000, revenues $0, levy $6,000. County share of uncollected property taxes, budget $1,000, revenues 0, levy $1,000. Sheriff's Administration, budget $3,874,805.92. Revenues $112,660. Levy $3,762,145.92. Badges, budget $25,852.33. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. Sheriff's Vehicle capital outlay is 000. Scape, budget $58,974. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. Dispatch, budget $951,001.46. Revenues 0. Levy $951,001.46. Support services, budget $118,673.16. Revenues 0. Levy $118,673.16. Highway safety, budget $665. Revenues 0. Levy $665. Jail administration, budget $2,551,898.49. Revenues $424,700. Levy $2,127,198.49. Child support, budget $733,778.06. Revenues $607,874.75. Levy $125,903.31. MCO payment, budget $402,782.57. Revenues are 0. Levy $402,782.57. Veterans relief, budget $4,000. Revenue 0. Levy $4,000. Veterans transportation, budget $12,000. Revenues 0. Levy $12,000. Veterans service office, budget $140,883.12. Revenues $13,750. Levy $127,133.12. Veterans ARPA grant, I missed graves. Care Veterans graves, budget $10,000. Revenue 0. Levy $10,000. Veterans ARPA grant is 000. Libraries, budget $561,653.51. Revenues 0. Levy $561,653.51. Parks Commission, budget $208,594.06. Revenues $39,100. Levy $169,494.06. Park improvements is 000. Park Pond is 000. Economic development, budget $120,028.54. Revenues 0. Levy $120,028.54. Digital marketing grant is 000. Broadband, budget $18,337.40. Revenues, same amount. Levy is 0. Snowmobile trails, budget $163,830. Revenues, the same amount. Levy 0. County fair, budget $24,000. Revenue 0. Levy $24,000. Digital media, budget $179,523.39. Revenues $7,450. Levy $172,073.39. Digital media voluntary gifts, budget $9,200. Revenues the same amount. Levy is 0. Summer work experience is 000. University extension, budget $182,779.71. Revenues $1,684. Levy $181,095.71. Water Quality Education Fund budget, $31,722.27. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. Bead Survey Grant is 000. PAT and Educational budget, $8,000. Revenues, $8,000. Levy, 0. Juntos budget is $4,250. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. Community Garden budget, $1,100. Revenues, $1,100. Levy, 0. Youth Education budget, $2,300. Revenues, 0. Levy, $2,300. Non-metallic mining reclamation budget, $2,000. Revenues, $2,000. Levy, 0. Land and Water Management budget, $40,000. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. DLM cost share budget, $70,000. Revenues, 0. Levy, $70,000. Tree and Shrub budget, $21,250. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. Department of Land Management budget, $518,150.16. Revenues, $281,481. Levy, $236,669.16. Lake Protection and Monitoring budget, $10,000. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. Multi-discharge variance budget, $89,167.40. Revenues in the same amount. Levy is 0. Conservation aids budget, $3,942. Revenues in the same amount. Levy, 0. GEM grant expense is 000. Mississippi River Regional Planning Commission budget, $13,458. Revenue 0, levy $13,458. DLM vehicle, budget $8,000, revenues $8,000, levy 0. Building inspection, budget is $100,000, revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. Planning is 000. Wisconsin Fund Septic Systems, budget $25,000, revenues the same amount, levy is 0. Miscellaneous expenses, budget $10,000, revenues in the same amount, levy 0. Contingency Fund, budget $200,000, revenues 0, levy $200,000. Going to revenues, tax exempt computers is an anticipated revenues are $28,593.45, which is a minus in that account. Managed forest law revenues $103,693.42, so that amount is also a minus. County sales tax $2.8 million, and that's a minus of $2,800,000. Interest on taxes, revenues $150,000, which is a minus there, also of that same amount. Federal aid in lieu of taxes of revenues of $18,300, so that is a minus in the levy. Shared taxes from the state, revenue is $2,786,383.58, and that is a minus to the levy. Interest on temporary investments, revenues is $1 million, so that is a minus to the levy. Personal property aid is $259,003.97, so that's a minus to the levy. And general fund applied, $400,000, minus $400,000. Going on to public health, budget $570,941.75. Revenues, $52,500, levy, $518,441.75. Bioterrorism, budget $32,012. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. TB dispensary, budget $3,179.26. Revenues the same, levy 0. WIC, budget $232,301.84. Revenues in the same amount, levy is zero. Tobacco control, budget $1,026.58. Revenues in the same amount, levy is zero. Public health workforce grant, budget $11,496.27. Revenues in the same amount, levy is zero. Great River United Way is all 000. Radon, a budget for $500, revenue is zero, levy $11,640. Immunizations, budget $11,553. Revenues, the same amount, levy is zero. Childhood lead, budget $4,046.42. Revenues in the same amount, levy is zero. The ARPA expense is 000. Going to human services, economic support, budget $789,288.14. Revenues $564,000, levy $225,288.14. Long-term support, budget $142,718.51. Revenues $128,235. Levy $14,483.51. Child care program, budget $13,000 in the same amount, levy is zero. Aging and Disability Resource Center, budget $567,431.52. Revenues $407,731. Levy $159,700.52. Justice sanctions is 000. Recovery Court, budget $145,367.76. Revenues $110,000, levy $35,367.76. Administration, budget $684,100.53. Revenues $676,556. Levy $7,544.53. Family and Children's Services, budget $2,103,947.35. Revenues $972,798.33. Levy $1,131,149.02. Human Services Vehicles is 000. Children with Special Needs, budget $2,962,242.19. Revenues $2,799,951.38. Levy $162,290.81. Behavioral Health, budget $1,345,952.14. Revenues $1,181,881.62. Levy $164,070.52. Going on to Senior Services, Benefit Specialist, budget $98,733.61. Revenues $71,300. Levy $27,433.61. 3D Preventive Health, budget $5,830. Revenues $5,300. Levy $530. 3B Administration, budget $16,288.21. Revenues $14,808.21. Levy $1,480. Section 85.21 Specialized Transportation, budget $113,428.93. Revenues $83,389. Levy $30,039.93. Their non-lapsing is 000. 3E National Family Caregiver, budget for $17,707.90. Revenues $16,000. Levy $1,707.90. C1 Congregate Nutrition, budget $136,987, revenues $128,987, levy $8,000. C2 home delivered meals, budget $334,507.47, revenues $184,990, levy $149,517.47. Volunteer driver program is 000. Home delivered meals donations is 000. Senior services donations is 000. Going on to jail assessment, budget $134,094.60. Revenue is the same amount, levy is 0. Wildlife damage, budget $38,040. Revenue is the same amount, levy 0. Nutrient management, budget $22,500. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. TRM cost share, budget $218,750. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. LWRM cost share, budget $242,731. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. Notice of discharge grant, budget $500. Revenues the same amount, levy 0. Maintenance on county trunk highway systems, $2,110,176.16. Revenues, $1,534,302.71. Levy, $575,873.45. Winter maintenance on county trunk highways, budget $704,025. Revenues are 0, levy $704,025. County road construction CTHS, budget $5,866,782. Revenues the same amount, levy is 0. Bridge construction and county trunk highway systems, budget $286,825. Revenue 0, levy $286,825. Transfer out to highway entities, budget $400,000, levy, revenue 0, levy $400,000. Co-aid road construction on local roads, budget $184,683.10. Revenues is 0. Levy $184,683.10. Going on to debt service, principal on long-term debt, budget $3,345,000. Revenues 0. Levy $3,345,000. Bond expense, budget $3,525. Revenues are 0, levy $3,525. Interest on long-term debt, budget $1,328,472.50. Revenues 0, levy $1,328,472.50. Capital in $340,795. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. PBM projects is 000. Town, city, and villages maintenance, budget $1,285,621. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. Co-aid road construction local, budget $1 million, revenues $1 million, levy is 0. Co-aid bridge local, budget 000. Local department road maintenance, budget $584,185. Revenues in the same amount, levy is 0. Miscellaneous, same amount, levy is 0. Grand total, budget $106,202,715.31. Anticipated revenues $88,761,483.50. Total levy $17,441,231.81. 30 minutes? 30? Yep. And then,
We wasted a couple minutes. Didn't start.
well, I wasted a couple.
It's a pretty good budget.
Okay. And still nothing from Chippewa Valley, so we'll go on to item 6. Environmental land use resolution.
Whereas Trempealeau County previously adopted a comprehensive zoning ordinance, which was last amended on July 15th, 2024. And whereas pursuant to county ordinance and as consistent with state law, the Environment and Land Use Committee may prepare and submit proposed amendments to the comprehensive zoning ordinance for consideration and for possible adoption by the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors. And whereas the proposed amendments to the comprehensive zoning ordinance are attached hereto and reflect the recommended changes to Trempealeau County zoning ordinance, Chapter 3, and specifically to Trempealeau County zoning ordinance 3.03, parentheses 3. And whereas a public hearing was held on October 2nd, 2024 pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 59.69.5 E2 regarding these proposed amendments to Trempealeau County zoning ordinance, Chapter 3, a copy which has been filed in the Office of the Department of Land Management and the Office of the County Clerk, and were available for public inspection for at least 2 weeks prior to the adoption of this resolution. Whereas the Environment and Land Use Committee has reviewed the proposed amendments to the comprehensive zoning ordinance, and it has determined that the proposed amendments are needed and in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of county residents, and they would better protect county land and resources. Now, be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby adopts and approves the attached amendments to the Trempealeau County zoning ordinance, introduced by Environment Land Use Committee, Kellen Nelson, David Larson, Anthony Munson, Randy Severson, Kevin Whalen, Andrew Todd, and Stacy Klein.
Move to approve. Well, I'll second.
Who was
We
the
were
first?
exactly
Motion by
in
Supervisor
tune.
Nelson, seconded by Supervisor Nutter. Any discussion?
This was
And-
a holdover from last month, correct?
Correct.
Because people didn't have the information.
And if you scroll down on your screen, you'll see they're both on there now.
Right.
The red. Okay. No discussion? All those in favor? Oh, got a
It's
call
an
roll on
ordinance.
this one.
Yep. Okay, Don Waldera,
Yes.
Robert Becker,
Yes.
Renee Lyon,
Yes.
Kellen Nelson,
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter,
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner,
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Did Lori come on? Neither
Lori
one.
Severson, yes.
Okay, thank you. Andy Todd, he probably didn't come on. Richard Anderson,
Yes.
Kevin Adams,
Yes.
Dick Miller,
Yes.
Kevin Whalen,
Yes.
and John Austin.
Yes.
Would be 15-0.
I guess I skipped the most important part there. Did we have any discussion on the budget?
We do that afterwards.
We want to do that
Well,
later?
you can open the budget hearing.
But, well,
Yeah.
you want to finish 6 first?
Yeah.
Okay. Human Services Board, support for state and mental health funding.
Whereas Trumbull County is concerned that the public human services system in Wisconsin is in need of additional resources to respond appropriately to the needs of individuals with persistent mental illness, those experience a mental health crisis, and other human service needs. And whereas state law designates counties with the responsibility for the well-being, treatment, and care of individuals with mental illness and other human service needs, and serving those without private insurance coverage. And whereas the Medical Assistance Program, MA, covers an array of mental health services ranging from office-based therapy to inpatient hospitalization, and many of these services are delivered by counties. And whereas community support programs, CSP, offer intensive community-based care for those adults whose mental illness and functional limitations might otherwise require them to need institutionalized care. Counties use with CSP services to keep people out of extended hospitalizations and support people in the community following emergency detentions. And whereas counties are required to provide crisis intervention services, including an emergency mental health services program to serve persons in crisis situations, at a minimum 24-hour crisis telephone service and 24-hour in-person response on an on-call basis. Whereas while the state pays the full cost of most MA services when it comes to county-based CSP and crisis mental health services, the county finances the cost of the services up front and receives MA reimbursement for only the federal share of that service. And whereas community aids and other human service funding has not kept pace over the years with increased county costs for services, resulting in counties bearing a disproportionate share of CSP, crisis, and other human service costs from county tax levy. And whereas the counties are limited in their capacity to use tax levy revenue due to state levy limits, so the lack of state human service aids increases, combined with strict property tax controls, makes it difficult for counties to maintain crisis, CSP, and other human services. And whereas if human services were operated directly by the state, annual increases would be provided to cover increased compensation costs for human services staff, similar to the annual compensation increases provided to state employees. And whereas, in addition to the costs to county human service departments, counties and municipalities also incur law enforcement costs to transport and provide security for persons in a crisis. Whereas the awareness of the 988 National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline has made mental health assessment and referral more readily available, resulting in more demand on the mental health crisis systems. Whereas the stagnant state funding results in variations in the extent of services available across counties, wait lists for services, and eligible people receiving limited services. Whereas Wisconsin counties continue to cover the cost of mental health services for individuals who are not Medicaid eligible. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Trumbull County Board of Supervisors does hereby request that the state of Wisconsin, in its 25-27 state biennial budget, provide state GPR funding to cover the full non-federal share of MA, CSP, and crisis services, as well as annual increases to state human service aids to cover increased compensation costs for human services staff. And be it further resolved that the Trumbull County Clerk is hereby authorized and directed to send a copy of this resolution to the Governor of the State of Wisconsin, Wisconsin State legislators with a constituency within Trempealeau County, and the Wisconsin Counties Association. Introduced by Human Services Board, Dick Miller, Jeannie Nutter, Bridget Turner, Ron Johnson, Richard Anderson, Diane Schrader, Scott Brown.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter, second by Supervisor Anderson. Any further discussion? Hearing none? Call the roll.
Don't have to on this one.
Oh, all done. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, got them all. Opposed, anybody? No, it's carried. Next one is from Human Services and the Board of Health. Transfer from Trumbull County Health Department powers and duties to the Trumbull County Department of Human Services.
Whereas Trumbull County has established a single county Department of Human Services under Wisconsin Statute 46.23. Whereas consistent with Wisconsin Statute 46.23, parentheses 3B1, The Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors may transfer the powers and duties of the following to the Trempealeau County Department of Human Services. A local Board of Health for local health department as defined in Wisconsin Statute 250.01 parentheses 3. A local health department as defined in Wisconsin Statutes 250.01 parentheses 4A1. A local health officer for a local health department as defined in Wisconsin Statute 250.01 parentheses 5. And whereas pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 251.03 paren 1, a county human services board may act as a county board of health if the membership meets the specified qualifications, and if the County Human Services Board is authorized to act in that capacity by the County Board of Supervisors, and if the County Human Services Board uses the word health in its title. And whereas consistent with Wisconsin Statute 59.18 paren 2 and 251.06 paren 4, the county administrator is empowered to appoint the county health officer, subject to confirmation by the County Board of Supervisors. And whereas the relationship between the County Human Services Director and the county health officer derives from Wisconsin Statute 46.23 paren 6MA. Consequently, when the County Board of Supervisors makes the transfer of duties authorized by Wisconsin Statute 46.23 paren 3B, the county health officer is placed under the supervision of the County Human Services Director. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors hereby transfers the powers and duties of the Trempealeau County Health Department and the Trempealeau County Health Officer to the Trempealeau County Department of Human Services pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 46.23 paren 3B, effective December 1, 2024. And be it further resolved that as a result of this transfer, the Trempealeau County Human Services Director will oversee and administer what were formerly Trempealeau County Health Department programs, and the Trempealeau County Health Officer is placed under the supervision of the Trempealeau County Human Services Director pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 46.23 paren 6MA. And be it further resolved that the Trempealeau County Department of Human Services is retitled the Trempealeau County Department of Health and Human Services effective December 1, 2024. And be it further resolved that the Trempealeau County Administrator is directed to examine and evaluate the transfer of the powers and duties of the Trempealeau County Board of Health to the Trempealeau County Human Services Board under Wisconsin Statute 46.23 paren 3B, and report back to the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors with the recommendations regarding the combined board composition as well as other systemic changes that may be needed to no later than January 20th, 25. Introduced jointly by Board of Health and Human Services Board, Bridget Turner, Kevin Adams, Lori Severson, Stacy Klein, Dawn Waldera, Dr. Kimberly Breedenbach, Dick Miller, Jeannie Nutter, Ron Johnson, Bridget Turner, Rich Anderson, Diane Schrader, Karen Sepik, and Scott Brown.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter, seconded by Supervisor Johnson. Any discussion on it? Yes.
I see that our director is here. I'm just wondering if we could have him come up and talk a little bit about this as to why this developed and what the positive things are and those kind of things, if you don't mind.
Am I on?
Thank you.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. Yeah, this is something that Rebecca had approached me about a while back, and we talked about the timing and all the advantages, because the health department and the human services departments work fairly closely together in a lot of different ways, whether it's, the WIC program with our Birth to 3 program, the ADRC with a lot of the programs within there, as well as far as the Bridges Health and things like that. So there's just a lot of natural connections there, and so So when Rebecca came to me, I said that this sounded like a good idea, but I wanted to make sure that we were doing it the right way, that we were attending to everything that needs to be considered along the way as well. So, so one of the things that we also did was we talked to some of the staff in the health department and asking, you know, what are the things we should be paying attention to if we move forward down this path? And both boards, the Board of Health and the Human Services Board, had charged us to continue down that path. And so we're still kind of in the process of talking with the staff, asking them, you know, what should we be thinking about? Because I think one of the concerns that was brought forward on both boards, I don't know if it was a concern, more of a cautionary note maybe, is that the health department does not lose its identity, and the programs delivered by the health department don't suffer, don't decline, you know, anything like that. So, so that they don't get lost in the overall merger. So those are some of the things we're paying attention to, and that make a lot of sense. And we've talked to a lot of folks as well. I've talked with other human services directors who they do have those two departments combined. And one of them even told me, they both said they couldn't really, because I asked, what are the pros, what are the cons? They really couldn't come up with any of the cons. And matter of fact, one of them told me, he said, he goes, Jay, this is the only way I've ever known it. He worked in the Minnesota system for a period of time, and it was the same way there. And he goes, I've never known any other way. He said, so I really see a lot of the positives and the kind of those synergies that happen with those two departments being together. So, so that's just a little bit of the backdrop. I don't know if there were further, you know, questions or things like that, but.
I was just wondering, were there questions about why now? Was that part of what your question was?
Yeah.
So the why now just being that there's been some staff changes that make it time to evaluate, or a good time to evaluate?
Basically, there's a vacancy in
Yep.
Director of Health Department, so it worked out perfect.
And I think it's important to note that most counties, not all, but the majority anyway, do have their Department of Health and Human Services are a joint, or in one department.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it by no sense. It's just that I had some people ask me about it, and I says, and I apologize for not talking earlier to ask you if you'd be willing to come up and
No, that's
speak.
fine.
But they were gonna be listening to the county board and, today, and I thought it'd be best that you just kind of fill them in as well, so thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Anything else?
No other questions? We can call the roll.
I can do that. Renee Lyon,
Yes.
Kellen Nelson,
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter,
Yes.
Ron Johnson,
Yes.
Bridget Turner,
Yes.
Stacy Klein. Yes. Lori Severson,
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller,
Yes.
Kevin Whalen,
Yes.
John Austin,
Yes.
Don Waldera,
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
15-0.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think it's been a really good process so far, and what I'll do is, you know, we have a list of positives that we feel that it really makes sense to do this right now, and I'll just send that to each of you as well, so that you have that if people are asking questions, and you can talk about, you know, some of the reasons behind it, that specific.
Okay. Audit Committee.
Okay, and this resolution is being presented, but the committee has not met until this coming Thursday to okay them. But I'm also supposed to tell you that the checks are already ready for you downstairs, so you can pick them. Okay?
Are they at
And
your
if there's any mistakes or anything like that, they'll be corrected on your next one. So whereas the
All right, can you send her up?
audit committee has audited the following
okay.
claims and recommend that they be allowed as follows.
What's up?
John Austin, $1,794.63. Kevin Adams, $210.30. Richard Anderson, $654.77. Robert Becker, $274.12. Ron Johnson, $276.38. Stacy Klein, $472.36. David Larson, $595.64. Renee Lyon, $300. Dick Miller, $171.44. Kellen Nelson, $67.42. Jeannie Nutter, $887.60. Richard Seisha, $219.68. Lori Severson is 0. Andy Todd is 0. Bridget Turner is 0. Don Waldero, $168.76. Kevin Whalen, $126.80. Total per diems, $4,900. Total expenses, $1,319.90. Grand total, $6,219.90. Now be it resolved that the claims be allowed as shown. Introduced by Audit Committee, John Austin, David Larson, Jeannie Nutter.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Who was the,
Was it Dawn?
It was
Dawn?
Walder.
It was a quiet little voice down there.
Motion by Supervisor Waldera, second by Supervisor Nutter. Better read the roll.
I
roll
can,
call.
as soon as I can write. Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Okay, Lori Severson.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Don Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
Renee Lyon.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
15-0.
Okay. That's the right one. Appointment to Housing Authority.
Yep.
You got that one? Go ahead and
Yep,
read it.
there's actually 2 of them. The first one is the Housing Authority of Trumpealeau County is requesting reappointment of Karen Whitty of Whitehall to the Housing Authority of Trumpealeau County Board of Directors for another 5-year term. Ms. Whitty, her term expires 12/31/24. Her financial knowledge, past experience, and involvement in the community is a tremendous benefit to our agency. Thank you for your consideration. And it's signed by Francis Menka, who's the executive director.
Second for approval.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Supervisor Nutter, second by Supervisor Turner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
They opposed by anybody?
You gotta wait for it.
Okay, it's good. Read the other.
The other half of that one, the Housing Authority of Trumpealeau County is requesting appointment of Tim Zeglin of Independence to the Housing Authority of Trumpealeau County Board of Directors to fill out the term ending 12/31/25 vacated by Chuck Wallach. Mr. Zeglin's prior knowledge and experience residing on the county board is a tremendous benefit to our agency. Again, signed by Francis Manka.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Supervisor Turner, and second by Supervisor Adams. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed? Not, that's carried. Winding Rivers Library.
Okay, this one came from Kristen Anderson, the Director of Winding Rivers Library System. It appears that June Pulowski's appointment to the WRLS Board expires at the end of this year. June is willing to continue, and we would appreciate keeping her, if that is the pleasure of the Trumpealeau County Board.
Move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter, seconded by Supervisor Johnson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I have a question or a
Yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
We used to get feedback about Winding Rivers when George was on the board. Could we get them on the agenda to have?
I talked to Kristen, and she's willing to come.
Oh, great,
So
because it's good to get
Maybe I can get her
be
for next
connected with
month.
them, and I feel kind of disconnected because we haven't, I talk to librarians all the time, but I haven't talked to, about the whole system, so thank you.
'Cause it's yours.
This one. Quentin?
Oh, okay. Sure, I am bringing forward then the appointment of interim health officer. I'm sorry, I don't have,
Nanishka,
yeah, how do you say that?
Nanishka
Nanishka
Ruiz, yeah.
Ruiz.
There
yeah.
you go.
Nanishka Ruiz for interim health officer at this time as we transition.
Motion by Supervisor Nutter. Second, Supervisor Turner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear her this time, but
Oh, for what? Oh, no Lori that time?
I again.
oh, I think you were on mute or something. But anyway, that's passed. Okay, committee reports.
You have the county sales tax and the general fund updates on your, and the budget update will have to come next month because we were too busy with the elections. We had one last week.
Okay, correspondence. You want to read the correspondence?
Whereas the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association is a group organized for the purpose of educating county treasurers throughout the state of Wisconsin and is also for the purpose of keeping county treasurers informed of current events that impact their offices, their counties, and their communities. And whereas the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association has a tradition of recognizing and commending those members who have served the association faithfully and well. Whereas Lori Halama, the duly elected county treasurer in and for the county of Trempealeau, Wisconsin, has since 2005 represented her constituents, her county, and the state of Wisconsin with a high degree of professionalism and dignity. And whereas Lori Halama has been a contributing member and has served on the legislative and education committees of the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association with diligence and a high degree of excellence. And whereas Lori Halama has during her career as Trempealeau County Treasurer exemplified the ideals of public service and by doing so has brought honor to the association and to Trempealeau County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association that in recognition of her exemplary public service, the resolution of commendation is issued to Lori Halama, Trempealeau County Treasurer. Be it further resolved by the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association that a copy of this resolution shall be forwarded to the chairman of the Trempealeau County Board of Supervisors, passed and issued this 18th day of October 2024 by her friends and colleagues in the Wisconsin County Treasurers Association. Scott Henke, President, Connie Beersdorf, President-elect, and Heather Gert, Vice President. And we have a certificate for you, and we left it down on our desk, so we'll give it to you. But if you gotta have it.
Anyway. I told you I did have something for you today. There is no other correspondence, is there?
I don't have anything else, nope.
Okay, we'll do item 10, instructor clerk to pay mileage and per diem.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
And
Or do you
then-
wanna do the budget first?
We'll go back to the budget. Maybe they want to take a break for lunch, because there might be some discussion on this. I'm assuming there's going to be some discussion on this budget.
There is. We've discussed it a million times.
I know we've gone through it, but, well, we can do.
Well, you could raise your hand
Well, I
if you
can
wanna
just-
stay and keep going, or if you
Let's,
wanna break.
yeah, okay, we'll do that. Well, let's do 10 first and be done with it.
Okay.
Motion to instruct the clerk to pay mileage and per diem.
Move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Turner, second by Supervisor Nutter. Call the roll.
Ron Johnson. Bridget Turner.
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Don Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
Renee Lyon.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Okay, 15-0.
Okay, now we go back to the budget. Does anybody want to take a break, or you want to just go through and get her all done?
Yeah,
All right.
Open the public hearing.
Okay, open the public hearing then.
What did you say? Donuts, if anybody's wanting snack. Oh, donuts, okay.
Need some
Oh.
sugar to get through.
Okay, this is open to public comment. Any comments on the budget at all?
Does that include, can I make a comment?
Yeah,
Not public, I'm sorry.
you're,
Yeah,
you're
that's
part of
fine.
the public,
You're
if you want.
part of the public or board, either one.
All I want to say is, this is the first time in a long time where I feel like I actually know every single element in this budget.
Actually,
because-
what we should do is make a motion to,
I'll make a
At
motion
least
to, I'll make a
discuss it.
motion
At
to
least
approve the
discuss it.
During the
budget.
hearing.
no?
You do it when you close the
Oh,
hearing.
Okay, I withdraw my motion then. My comment is just that I feel so confident about this budget because we've discussed it so many times. And I feel like it's the first time in a long time I know everything in it, every reason for it. And I just want to thank everyone who put this budget together, our county administrator, Paul Severson, and his group. I just feel so knowledgeable about it, so thank you.
I would say yes, we have gone over this for like 2 months, several times. But that's definitely right there.
John,
Mr. Larson?
in here, I was presented with a letter this morning with a couple questions that I think could be answered publicly at this answer. What's the special accounting cost for the $100,000 budget item? What does that consist of?
That's our audit.
That-
That
And that's
is our
all it
audit.
is audit.
Audit and, well, they do our reports for us
But
also.
it's all with the same firm.
Yeah, it's all with
Okay.
the same firm, yep.
That's a $100,000 item you're talking about? Yeah.
The other one is, what is the health insurance deductible of $132,000 consist
You
of?
want to answer that one as HR director? Or I can,
Oh, if you
too.
want to, that's fine.
Okay, what that is that the insurance plans that we have a $1,000 deductible for families and a $500 deductible for singles, and the county picks that deductible up. We get a lower rate. The premium is lower because of the deductible.
So the employee does not pay a deductible.
No.
So basically,
Well,
it's,
basically, the employee pays it and gets reimbursed by the county, yes.
so it's an incentive program for keeping employees around, basically.
Basically.
And the premium down.
Yep.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Just a question on
Put your mic on, by the way. Yeah.
On the DLM, Department of Land Management, why is there such a decrease in proposed tax levy compared to last year?
Could we refer to the line, to the page number that we're in line item maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Page 3. Yep. DLM.
That,
Basically, no
pri-
direction.
there's no director, no, and also the fiscal person has been brought up to administration, so that salary and benefits is now over in administration.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I need some help with this. I know that there's an explanation, and I probably have heard it before. I just don't remember. On page 4, there is, wait, nope, page 6. There is the line items that talk about the maintenance of the county highway systems, the winter maintenance, the road construction and bridges. But then also on page 7 in the highway fund, there are the same line items, but different amounts, like they're different budget, I understand. But how do we determine what gets put in what budget and why?
You want me to answer that?
Sure. Just go ahead, yeah.
Okay, well, it's kind of a new way of accounting. The highway department has no levy. You'll see that in there. They're all in what I still will call a cost pool. So all the expenses are in where it's on page 6, the fund the fund number 235 is where all the levies are. And what it is that they're spent here, and then they're billed to the highway department, is what it is. So I mean, if you looked at the bottom line, it's pretty close to the same as what it was last year. You got to look at the two yes.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Question.
Go ahead.
A couple questions. On I see on the TV station, that is all back to where it was, correct?
Correct.
Did employees, after they are getting their wages that they got before, or are they cut? You said you were gonna cut them, and are they?
Well, that would be for the decision to, when I'm working through personnel bargaining on the alignment of organization of people, correct?
Is that a yes or no? Did you cut their wages, or did you give them a
In the
raise?
budget is full wages. I will be working with personnel bargaining.
Plus, they got the
through-
6% like everybody else.
Correct.
And then on page 1, it says administration, it went from 400,000 to 706. It would be nice to see the breakdown and where that exactly went and who got what.
Yeah, well, that's an additional, that finance position that was moved from DLM, the emergency management position and benefits that was moved from the sheriff's department, and then your county administrator, basically. Right, and well, yeah, it's the HR department, you've got all of those new positions.
They're not new, though.
Correct.
They're just reassigned positions.
Reassigned, right,
There are no new positions,
correct,
except you.
right.
And then what was the cost of all these new changes that you've made with, you showed us, I apologize, I left that other box of sheets of paper I got at home with. You had the breakdown of every position change.
The
and where they-
reclassifications?
Yes.
Was about an impact of about $40,000 worth of reclassifications only.
For the total of all of them?
Correct. Because I remember talking through that in the past. We did bring that up before, and that was something I did talk about before.
I had one other question, but I forgot it. I'll think.
Go ahead, Ms. Turner.
Question for the administrator. So with the 3 and 3, the total of 6% for the wage increases, given that, do you feel that that is enough of a threshold to keep the tenure of our employees? And given the cost of living, do you feel that that's adequate, or where did you come up with those numbers?
So I had shared previously looking at other counties, and I would say in comparison, there was anywhere from generally about a 3 to even 6% increase last year. And so we're playing catch-up. I would not say necessarily that we're caught up. It's a step to get us closer, because last year was a lost opportunity where, again, so I would think, I guess, I look at it and thinking next year is reevaluating again to come back strong, to make sure that we are. But I think it goes a long way, and I think in the conversations that I've had with staff is that it's looked upon favorably, so. Thank you.
Mr. Becker.
I remembered. Where is the special accounting? It says you have, is that just accounting, isn't it? Or is it?
I'm sorry,
Why-
what?
That was the one that Dave just asked the same question.
Well, I was in the bathroom, so I didn't hear the answer.
I didn't talk loud enough. That's our audit.
That is the audit,
That's
okay.
the Baker
And
Tilly
then
audit.
the health insurance deductible at 132, do we pay deduct on that
Yeah,
too?
that one was also answered, I guess, when you were gone.
I wasn't
I'm
into that
sorry.
long, Paul.
You gotta quit going to the bathroom.
For getting
Well,
a,
drink plenty of water.
for getting a lower premium, we have the deductible and the county
I know it
picks up the
changes all the
employees.
time, so, okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
are we beyond the hearing time now, or are we?
I think we're still in the hearing because he hasn't closed it.
Okay, well, I'll wait until.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any,
Stacy's been trying to ask a question.
But is it?
Oh,
is it for
sorry
the
about
public-
that.
Public hearing or the?
You want to put your microphone up?
Page 6, 401 capital projects, the anticipated revenues, where do those come from?
The what now?
Interest on revenue?
So it's the
Page.
page 6, 401. Yeah, page 6, 401 capital projects. And then the first line there, that 10 million.
Oh, where does that come from?
Yeah, where does the revenue come from?
I brought the other one with.
This one.
It's
I know.
401.521160, capital outlay.
Yes.
I'm trying to find it too.
It's on,
$10,720.
if you go to your budget book, which you also have, it starts on page 26 and goes to 27.
That's,
And there is one typo in there. Well, I can read them all to you. It's like server replacement is $7,500. PC and laptops is $35,000. Interior signage is $6,000. Sidewalk sweeper is $6,000. Remove fire pump, $9,000.
But I
You
don't
want
think,
all those?
your question was, where's the revenue? It shows
revenue.
revenue for, in the
Yeah.
same amount as the,
yeah.
That's, if you go to page 27, it's proceeds of long-term bonding.
that's where the
Okay, that's what I
bonding is.
thought.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
So by approving,
But if you wanted to go to the book, I wanted to tell you the one thing that had two numbers turn around. And this is where, I'm on page 27 of the book. We had converting paper to digital for the registered deeds. In the book, it said 250,000, but it's 84,925. And the next one down, rec facilities and economic development, says 84,925 and should be the 250,000. So those two numbers are just, yep, they're just on the wrong lines.
Doesn't change the balance.
It doesn't change the balance.
Okay.
And the sidewalk sweeper we already purchased, correct?
Yes.
a really minor item, but more or
Go ahead.
less gonna ask it anyway. Law library, can somebody explain what that all consists of? Like, I think of a law library and I'm like, you can Google it.
Well,
And most of the law library is digital now.
Okay.
So, but what it is that the clerk of courts pays a fee to Lexis? Huh?
Westlaw.
It's not Lexis anymore.
Not anymore.
Oh, it's a different Westlaw, okay. And then they do get money back. That's why there's a revenue from lawyers that use that.
So that's just like an application fee, an annual fee.
It's
Yeah.
a subscription,
Okay.
is based.
Thank you.
yes.
okay. Any more? Otherwise, we can close this portion and look for a motion
I move to approve the 2025 budget.
to approve.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Motion by Supervisor Nutter and seconded by Supervisor Lyon, I think it was. Okay,
Yes, it was. Now's when there's discussion.
now discussion. From the board, you go ahead.
Okay. First of all, there's a question, and I want to make a comment. The state imposed levy limits, we are at that
To
point.
the,
Yeah, and
to the penny.
on the budget, yeah, on the
Okay.
actual budget.
Okay.
Levy.
And I think, and I addressed this, I'll throw this back to Bridget. She asked a question, I think, did you ask a question about the increase in pay and to employees? And that was a good question, and I think just a comment on that is that we are at levy limits, and this is what we're told. So there are some issues that pertaining to those raises, obviously, in that. The comment I would like to make is I've served on your board here I'm going on 20 years. We have never in the past approved economic development funding. And I would like to say that this is really something that is a long time in coming. I know there's some controversy with it because it is a new expenditure. But, you know, we take it for granted that things remain the same. They don't. we have businesses that come and go, and we have to be prepared to invite businesses to come, to stay. And I think this is one vehicle by which we can use to help that process. Rebecca has spoken to the need for daycare, and that obviously supports the economic viability of our community. But this is not the only thing. And so I say is that we move into the future, we talked about a 5-year plan for our bonding. I think as we move into the future, this could look differently from year to year. So I think this precedent that we will set today is very meaningful to our future economic viability of this county. So I think as we address this, as you address it in your vote, please keep this in mind.
Okay, Ms. Miller.
I would totally agree with you, Mr. Miller, even though we do disagree sometimes. But I think looking to the future and developing I like the idea of a 5-year plan for our county, looking ahead, because we can't just go year to year, day to day. We have to think about the future and our kids and grandkids and people who are living here. And I agree. I feel so good about this budget. It's really, people put a lot of energy into it, thought and feedback. So that's all I have to say.
May I comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I also agree wholeheartedly. I see this as a real positive step toward strategic planning. We've talked about planning for years and years and years, and we're doing it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I would like to make a motion to make a minor adjustment in the budget. It does not cost anybody any money. It's a matter of how things are recorded.
Yes.
So I wish to make a motion to reduce the winter maintenance fund expenses by $400,000 and reduce revenues by $400,000 from the unassigned general fund, with the understanding that at a later date, we will do a business-type decision of taking money out by resolution and not as a budget balancing process.
If you could, I know why you're doing this, but maybe we forgot that you talked about this last month or at a budget meeting. Could you explain that to the public?
To the public.
Yeah.
Well, I've been told that I'm too picky by some people, but 2 years ago, the last time we borrowed, we did not borrow last year. 2 years ago when we borrowed, there was an asterisk in our credit rating. When we went to the explanations of it, the number one reason listed was that we had been using unassigned general funds as a balancing measure for the budget. So I said, last year we did a similar thing. We, by resolution, took money from that account that could afford it and put it into a non-lapsing fund for other purposes. So that's the same thing this year. I don't want to see that asterisk show up on our credit rating again, because we're talking borrowing money for several years or more. And if we would lose a notch in our credit rating, it would amount to many thousands of dollars in extra interest on our borrowing situation later. So that's why I'm making the motion.
Good response.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Any further discussion on it? It basically will be made up again. It just drops this budget to take that out of the general fund deal, so it doesn't look like it affected our general fund to balance the budget for now.
An example of the resolution that it would be brought forward in January then is included, so that you have that.
So, yeah, so that's, that'll be put back into the budget back in January. Or back in the maintenance fund, I should say. So, I think there's money involved, so you want to call a roll? This is on the amendment.
This is to amend it.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Don Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
Renee Lyon.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
15-0.
Okay, now, we're back to the motion to approve the budget as, we do have a motion on approving the
We
budget.
already got
Yep.
that, yep.
So if we have the motion,
If-
this will be
Unless
to
there's any
pass,
other.
to pass the amended budget. So we'll call the roll on that, unless there's further discussion.
Yeah, you got to do that, because
Any further discussion?
any
Not?
other amendments?
If there's no other amendments, or, so we'll pass the budget as amended.
Oh, who's first?
Start calling the roll.
Hang on here. Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Kevin Adams.
Yes.
Dick Miller.
Yes.
Kevin Whalen.
Yes.
John Austin.
Yes.
Dawn Waldera.
Yes.
Robert Becker.
Yes.
Renee Lyon.
Yes.
Kellen Nelson.
Yes.
David Larson.
Yes.
Jeannie Nutter.
Yes.
Ron Johnson.
Yes.
Bridget Turner.
Yes.
Stacy Klein.
Yes.
Lori Severson.
Yes.
Okay, 15-0.
15-0.
Wow.
And
Pass.
so if you look at the, well, if you opened up your,
No, that's it.
I did already.
What did you announce it?
Didn't I announce that your checks are ready downstairs?
But not if you have
must have
direct
been in the
deposit, right? Paul,
He was at the bathroom, no, what?
if you have direct deposit, it's not
Your
down
stub
there.
is there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, my stub?
Okay, anyway, though, then I have to announce that the new mill rate is now 5.117, down from 5.6 last year. So the mill rate is down.
Hey. That's good news. If there's no other discussion, we can adjourn at 12:24. Good.